a little history made in Christchurch as Phil Robertson will steer Canada to their first SailGP victory, and it comes at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix.
Come on! Yeah.
Sydney was a wild day of racing. And obviously the evening craning out, it all turned to custard pretty quickly, and was one of the most horrific experiences, I guess, of everyone's lives.
Well, I think it's one of those things that when you have sort of a situation like that where things sort of really go wrong, that you are either going to get closer together or you're going to get farther apart. And as a team, we made the decision that this was going to be something that was going to make us stronger rather than destroy us. From day one, Canada SailGP Team has been a family first, and we're all really close. We all talk to each other all the time. Those of us who live close to each other, you know, we go to dinner at each other's houses. We spend time with each other's families. So that, yes, we are a team, but we are a family. And I think that culture of being a family is part of what really helps in the tough times.
You got all of it, mate. She's all rubbed in. Basically, the British, French, Aussies and us are all on the same points. So we've just got to beat two of them if it comes to it. Copy that. Yeah, race day 2, 4th and a 6th. You know, we did what we needed to do in race 1 to be in a position to make to the final. I think we had to beat the French and the British. We knew if we just keep them behind us, we'd be in the final, and we didn't really focus on the result in that race as much as just beating those two boats.
We didn't need to have a stellar day to make the final. We just needed to not have catastrophic mistakes. And we just tried to simplify the race course and let other people make mistakes, knowing that we had a bit of a buffer from day one.
The final's a final. It's you push the reset button, you've got 2 other boats to beat, and you can be 3rd, 2nd or 1st going into it, and it doesn't matter. The final race is the final, and yeah, you win that one, you take home the chocolates.
When you can start ahead of your competitors, it always puts you in a good position. You always want to be out front. Phil has this amazing innate sense of time on distance and speed and positioning. He knows when to pull the trigger, when to put the boat on the edge, when to put the bow down and just go for that magic spot on the line.
Slow. Rounding up 2-1. Here we go. Coming out now. Big trim, boys. Staying slow. And let's go. Popping now.
And that obviously puts you on the front foot and able to attack from there because you know that everybody else is trying to catch you. So the magic spot on the start line was sort of near the bottom end of the line, sort of somewhere around here. So we basically came in, we have a pretty rigid structure for our starting, which is what helps us a lot with being able to have repeatable starts. But we have a pretty structured time where we want to cross the start line coming into the box. We almost always want to cross the start line from the bottom end. And we knew that the magic spot on the line was near the bottom of the line, so we came in at our prescribed time and we sort of tacked underneath the other boats, which basically at this point we're in the controlling position. And then from there we're just trying to, our time to kill number, we're trying to get that to 0.
25, 2, 18, 15, 1.5, 0.1, negative.
The start line of a 3-boat final is very different. You've obviously got much less traffic, and to be in the leeward position, the inside on Mark 1 is probably everything, especially when you're uprange on the light airfoils. The foils don't really accelerate as well, so if you're at the top coming in Mach 10 and someone's at the bottom sort of half speed, you're probably not going to roll them on the light airfoils as opposed to the high speed foils. So it's very powerful with the high speed foils to be at the top of the line going Mach 10, but not so much on the LOBs. So we're upwind LOBs, we wanted to win the pin, and you know if you fight hard for it, someone's probably going to back off.
So we're basically trying to maintain control on the other 2 boats while not being early for the line. And then when that time to kill number hits 0, we just basically put the bow down. I crank the boat way up in the air, trying to get the boat to accelerate as quickly as possible. And then we're sort of off like a herd of turtles to Mark 1.
We knew if we could keep both those boats from rolling us, then we're going to be in pretty good shape. Look, if you're in the pole position at Mark 1 in the final, the race is yours to lose. I would say, is probably the easy way to put it. It's only really if you make an error that the race is going to swing in the other's favor.
When you are off the start line first, it allows you to be in control, and so that you can dictate where the other boats go on the race course. You usually are in a right-of-way position, and they have to do something special to pass you versus you having to just sort of race your race.
The Canadians, no problem with their boat speed right now. Look at that, 74 kilometers an hour, stretching out, and New Zealand, they're just struggling to keep pace with the Canadians.
First downwind, we had a 200-meter lead, so we're in a really comfortable spot, and it's, as long as we don't make a mistake, it's pretty hard to come back from for the teams behind.
I think when we went for the boundary jibe, basically right in the middle of the jibe, when the dagger board hit lock, I have a catch basically that I have to quickly adjust the angle of the dagger board to set it at the right angle for the turn, and I just sort of didn't have the world's greatest catch, and the boat got a bit high, and then it got a bit nosedivey.
We know you have to be pushing to win races, so we probably just pushed it a little bit hard, do a big nosedive, but I think the thing we're most proud of in that situation was how we recovered.
Playing hockey as a kid, I was a goalie, and you always know when you let in a goal, you have to have a short memory. And being a flight controller is a lot the same way. Mistakes are going to happen. Nobody's perfect. We're all human, and it's how you react to those mistakes.
A good team recovers really well from a nosedive or a mistake. I think it was said on board like, hey, don't worry about it, all good, you're doing a good job. And that just sort of sets the focus in everyone's mentality back to zero, right, we're still racing, just do your job and carry on. So yeah, that was quite a pivotal moment in sort of winning that race, but it brought the Kiwis back into the game.
Opportunity now for the New Zealand boat to shut the distance, but it sounds like they've got it back under control on Canada, maybe just in time.
Coming into the bottom gate now, the Kiwis were on our tail, and we're always trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. So at this moment, I'm thinking, how are we going to pass this obstruction? Are we going to come out past this way, or are we going to tack at the mark and pass it on this side?
Kiwis will jibe, I think. We go straight. Can we get around? I think we can get around the outside. Plenty of time to judge, but probably 10 seconds after the mark, eh?
We had to go in quite a high slow mode to get up the boundary enough to tack and actually lay over the top of the obstruction, and that just meant the next cross that came, I think we crossed them by maybe 10 meters or something, but it wasn't a lot, and the game was on.
And then from there, it was basically, we knew we only had to beat one boat. We had to beat the Kiwi, so it was a match race at that point. And Phil is a world match racing champion, so that's sort of where he excels. At the top level of sport, you have to believe you can win, otherwise why are you here? That ethos sort of trickles down throughout the team from Phil, from his leadership, is that he believes he is the best in the world. The rest of us share that thought process that he has based on his confidence, and it's sort of something that is a culture of the team, that we all believe we can do this. And it doesn't always go our way, but on our day that we're unbeatable.
Well, the moment I was actually the most proud of was at the top mark, Kiwis on port, laying the right gate. We were underlay for the left gate, so we had to make a tack anyway. I'd say we were just bow forward on them. They were coming in quite fast, and your move here is either you are on starboard so you can cross and then tack, but they'll be in front. You can try and tack early and lay, but they'll bring it up. And what we did, which is probably quite a classic match racing move, was put on a really good lee bow. Now, the big risk of this is you try and tack close, and you basically want to end your tack there. The power of catamarans, especially foiling boats, is the speed difference is huge. So what you can do under the rules is actually bear away slightly, take the stern of a boat that's just tacked and they're a bit slower, hook them, and actually put them head to wind and luff them, and that's your best move. And what Pete did with the Kiwis is they sort of talked about it, they set up slightly overlay, they came in, we sort of put the tack in a really good spot, which made it really hard for them to decide whether to push through or try to roll above. And I think they sort of hesitated, they went for the push, we exited the tack super low, then they came up and tried to use their speed to roll over, and which meant we were actually able to just lock them there and sort of lead around that last top mark with them outside us.
High mode. Is it locked?
He's is inside.
We basically tacked directly in front of them, but we tacked at a point where we were very close to having to turn around the top mark as well. So there's a lot going on in that maneuver. You're having to execute attack, but then you're also having to execute a bear away, which is also a tricky maneuver. We pulled off the bear away in front of the Kiwis, but then at that point there's a really massive acceleration that happens as well. So everything's a bit out of control. And we sort of lost sight of where the boundary was, and we were just a bit late on getting set up for our jibe. You have to wait for the dagger board to hit the lock, and by the time the dagger board hit the lock, our bow scraped outside of the boundary, and we got a boundary penalty.
The difficult thing with these boats is about, I don't know, 6 to 8 seconds before you start your setup to jibe, before you can actually turn. It's quite a long time, so you can't actually just jibe on the spot.
Get fastest.
I think we crossed the boundary by a hull width, so about 1 metre. But what it did mean was we were able to lay the bottom, lay the obstruction, and lay the finish mark with one jibe.
Love to lay this boundary, copy. On lay here, okay? Take a breath. We have to give them inside room, and then we go around the outside, copy, taking depth now.
And I think it's one of those things you got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. Obviously, it did work out that we got around the obstruction and we had that perfect line into the final reach to the finish. But at that point, we were just trying to get around the top mark, get to the boundary, and execute a jibe. And then the rest was going to fall where it did from there. But everything was so rushed after rounding the top mark that we were sort of basically just trying to sail the boat cleanly at that point.
Definitely touch and go there with the boundary. Ideally, we wouldn't have crossed over it, but hey, such is life. We took our penalty, and it was the better move to do.
Canada seem to have found an extra bit of wind here. They're going so fast on that Canadian boat. The ladder lines show us neck and neck.
It does look like the Canadians are currently laying that gate.
We knew just from looking at it and the way the boats are closing on each other that we were going to be clean across. It was going to be close. We couldn't make any more mistakes, but we were going to be clean across if we just sailed the boat well. We crossed the Kiwis by about 2 or 3 boat lengths, and then we made the final right turn to the finish. And at that point, all the boys and girls started hooting and hollering, and I was sort of still head down doing my job because I have to do my job to the finish.
No issue.
Come on!
Yeah.
And then we sort of cross the finish line, and Phil walks away from the wheel, and it starts to sink in that you've just won, and that is an amazing feeling. It's a bit surreal early on, but as the sort of minutes and hours go on, you start to really realize what you've accomplished.
Coming from Sydney and the devastation to our boat, our team, what we'd been through and talked about, to crossing that finish line in Christchurch first, and man, that was unreal. That was a feeling I'll never forget. When you win an event like this, there's a sense of relief. That's probably your first emotion, is a huge amount of relief. But yeah, look, obviously elation as well. It's a pretty cool and special moment, and for me personally, being in New Zealand with my Canadian team that had gone through so much, it was the first event that I've actually had all my family watching as well on site. So yeah, it was an incredible moment to go through and celebrate with my family and some of my best mates.